Stop. 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 Had enough? Kick out mucus and quiet the cough with Mucinex 12-Hour DM for long-lasting cough and chest congestion relief. Buy Mucinex 12-Hour DM at your local retailer. Use as directed.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And I'm a Pekingese.
You're a Pekingese. I love Pekingese.
That tracks.
Yeah, it actually
Right?
does.
Yeah.
Low to the ground, kind of frisky, kind of fluffy.
Yappy.
Yappy.
Rare.
Rare. He's an Aquarius. But anyways, welcome, y'all. We are going to be doing a ghost mail today.
Woot woot. Woot woot.
You've got Ghostmail.
There it
I
is.
totally forgot.
No, that's okay. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Been a minute. Had a lot going on. We got we had the haggling.
Yes.
The haggling girls.
Yeah, we had.
Exorcism.
You
Yeah.
launched a true crime podcast.
Yep.
Since the last Ghostmail, certainly.
Yes. Yeah, we, well, y'all are already doing my announcements for me, so here we go. But yeah, well, since we're already in it, if you haven't watched the Hagland exorcism two-parter episode, go ahead and go and watch that whenever you're finished with this episode, I guess. Really fascinating case of like a genuine, demonic or some level of that type of entity absolutely causing terror in this home in Savannah. And it's very, unaware to the public. A lot of...
Yeah, we got the exclusive.
We got the exclusive. It was a very fascinating episode.
Yeah, and it's such a personal story. It's not like some widely publicated thing. It's certainly not going to be found on any tour anytime soon.
Exactly.
But it is the fact that it's such a harrowing experience.
Yeah, and so it was fantastic, though. So go watch that. And then for the True Crime podcast, I know some of y'all who listen to this podcast also are true crime lovers. So if you're into that, we basically took our segment from One to Wicked that we do here, and we kind of just, took that and planted it into a true crime setting where we talk about different true crime cases and different types of killers and whatnot. And we rate them on a scale from 1 to wicked on 5 different categories. Currently, we've been doing a lot of updates on the Leilani Simon case that currently is going on right now in Savannah, which, if you're not familiar with that, essentially it is a woman who is on trial for allegedly killing her 20-month-old son and then leaving his body in a dumpster.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a pretty gnarly case.
It's a terrible, terrible case.
Yeah, and so I've been watching Court so much.
So much court.
So much Court. So I've been giving...
Are you learning things about like court proceedings?
Oh, absolutely.
Because TV has sensationalized the way that court is conducted.
Yeah.
And you kind of you learn that there are much more rules and series of rules and interesting things.
Yeah,
I do love the idea that TV is not preparing criminals for it, because like I think there is like this belief that they're like, oh, well, that's circumstantial evidence. It's like, turns out circumstantial evidence is evidence.
Yes.
and it still can condemn you.
Yeah, I was really disappointed so far that nobody has screamed objection and Judge Stokes hasn't been like overruled. It has not happened, but it has been interesting though, nonetheless. And then last but not least, actually two things. I do want to thank some new Parajunkies that we have.
Yeah.
So first off, we want to thank Lindsay McClure, Haley Yarbrough, Jessica Lewis, Tia Rebman, Chibi Alkamiko, Ange S., Mylea, Brad Hicks, and John. So thank y'all so much for joining us over on Patreon. And if you are enjoying the content that we make, Patreon's a great way to help support us. You also get access to all these live streams. We're currently live streaming right now.
And you engage with other Parajunkies.
You engage with all the Parajunkies.
All the Parajunkies.
And we get to do fixes. We do some detoxes every once in a while for the Ultra Parajunkies. There's exclusive merch. So lots of fun stuff.
And we bring you along for our ghost hunts.
Yes. Speaking of our ghost hunts, if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, go ahead and pause for a second and go comment down below where you would like to see us go investigate next.
Absolutely. If you have an extremely haunted place in your hometown that you would like to see us go to, please let us know.
Exactly. So, yeah. And those are all my announcements that I have for us right now. But let's go ahead and get into Ghostmail.
Ghostmail.
Yes. So this first one comes from Hannah. And Hannah said... Oh, also before I get started, if you have a ghost story that you want to send to us, go ahead and send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. I always forget to say it at the beginning. I always end up saying it at the end. So yeah, if you have a ghost story, send it there. That's going to be the best way for us to actually see it, because if you send it to our DMs and whatnot, a lot of times it gets lost because we have a lot of DM requests and whatnot of lots of variety of topics. So that's the best way to do it, and we go in order. So eventually, we are a little bit backed up right now, but eventually we will get to everybody's ghost mails. So now, into Hannah's story. So Hannah said, hello. First, I just want to say sorry to JT because I first...
Sorry to me?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Because I first sent this to his email in the middle of the night a few days ago.
Oh, okay.
Well, this was a few weeks ago, but
okay,
nonetheless.
Yeah.
But
right.
Yes. It's fine. JT has, we have iPhones, so there are plenty of sleep modes and whatnot. But I sent this right after this event happened, so I was a little delirious, LOL. Which, honestly, I appreciate that you thought of us first when you had a paranormal encounter and said, I have to go write an email. But... continuing. Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm a longtime listener, and I've actually written y'all before about a year ago with Ghostmail about my experience in the West Texas desert, which I feel like I remember.
Oh, yes.
While working. I was working, and the only person around for miles, and I heard a man scream.
Right. I remember
this too. I was happy to think that... to think this would be my only weird or paranormal experience, but nope. So
once you start down the road, it doesn't stop.
Exactly. So here we are. I'm writing this pretty much immediately after this new experience happened because now I am wide awake. Since the last time I wrote, my husband and I have had our first baby. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Bought 40 acres in North Arizona and are living off grid on the land in our schoolie, which... honestly, good for y'all, because that is an impressive feat to convert one of those things. But that's awesome. And also, you moved to a very haunted state. So makes total sense that you're writing us right now. But as I'm now, I am now a stay-at-home mom. I have finally had time to catch up on a lot of y'all's episodes. So maybe I'm crazy and ghosts are just on the mind. But either way, I figure I'll let you decide if what just happened is real or not. For some context, I've always had intrusive thoughts that tend to be violent or about horrible accidents. I've accepted that this is just how my brain works, and usually I'm able to throw the thoughts away and go about my day. Luckily, they're not impulses or reoccurring, and they're almost never about paranormal type stuff. They tend to be things that like thinking about swerving while driving and things of this nature. They're also not premonitions that have never happened or felt real. The past couple of weeks, though, there are 2 thoughts/images that have been have reoccurred and have really stuck with me and left an impression. One is the image of someone or something looking through one of the windows in my bus. I can't see who it is, just that it's the shape of a head and a shadow type figure. The second really scares me. It's the image of me waking up to my 5-month-old screaming and not being with me. We co-sleep. But on the floor in front of my front door. I've pushed these images away each time and tried to forget about it. That is until tonight. My husband has a night shift and leaves for work around 10:30. Me and my daughter were fast asleep on one of the couches, which is in the middle of the bus. After my husband left, my dog seemed alert and irritated by something, which isn't the most unusual because there are sometimes coyotes that come on the property. What was unusual, though, is that he started pacing back and forth from the front door to the end of the bus where our kitchen and bed is. He would stare up at the bed but not get in it, even though that's where he usually sleeps. Then he would go back to the front door and do the same. What was also odd was he seemed really needy to me and kept coming and bothering me and wanting pets. Very out of the ordinary for him. He usually just wants to sleep alone. Around this time, I started getting what I thought were intrusive thoughts about someone being in the bus, but I told myself I was just scaring myself after watching too many of y'all's episodes back to back.
Sorry.
That happens. But then my dog jumped up to sleep with me and my daughter on the couch, which is extremely not like him as he is not very fond of the baby. I tried getting back to sleep when suddenly both me and my dog heard a bang, which sounded like it came from the cabinet directly across from where we were laying. It scared us both. I once more tried to ignore the fear, even though I could not logic out what could have made the noise. Nothing on top of the cabinet had moved or shifted, and there's nothing inside of it but our trash can. It's also not windy out, so it couldn't have been something hitting the outside of the bus. So as I, again, tried to close my eyes and calm down to sleep, I got one more image in my head. It was of someone bending over to get face-to-face with me.
Ooh.
That's super creepy.
Goodness.
Again, I couldn't really see what they looked like, but I could feel it was masculine. I can only describe it as gross and gangly.
Yum.
Nope. Nope. It was
Nope.
basically that. I immediately shot up and said, absolutely not. I am not playing these games. If someone is here, you are not allowed to look in my windows. You are not allowed to be in my house. And you are not allowed to be around me or my family. In the name of Jesus Christ, you need to leave my house and me and my family now. Then I said 3 Our Fathers out loud. After that, the quiet seemed much more comfortable and I felt so much better. But of course, now I am wide awake. And then, I'm going to read the rest of this, but Hannah sent a follow-up email. So any suggestions on how to keep my baby safe? My biggest worry is that she gets affected by spooky scaries that I can't see. So again, I'm not sure if I scared myself, but something I just felt off about tonight. Sorry if I rambled. Thanks again, Hannah. And then into the follow-up email. Hello again. I know this might be super annoying, but after a couple weeks, I feel like I need to add some details I skimped on, and I know y'all love details.
We do.
Might be best to read this after my first email. To clarify, I do have intrusive thoughts, but like I said in my story, they're almost never about paranormal type things. They also always feel like they come from me, and I'm so used to them, they're almost comfortable. The images leading up to the night of the event not only were abnormal because they kept repeating, but also because they felt somewhat foreign, like they didn't come from me. Same for the image of the thing that had come close to my face. That one for sure didn't feel like it had come from my head at all. Secondly, I described the noise I heard in the bus as a bang when it was most definitely a very hard knock. The more I thought about it, the more I knew for a fact it has come from the cabinet across from me.
Like a single knock? Mm-hmm. You know how I feel about single knocks.
Yeah, JT
Remember
always,
the strangers?
Yes. That I was literally about to bring that up after I finished that because
The freaking strangers. It's just
it's so abnormal.
It's so abnormal to knock one time. And the director made a excellent decision, including it.
The Strangers, it traumatizes me still to this day. That movie is so freaky. But anyways, I do too. But the next morning, I banged my hand hard against the top of it and realized it was the same sound. The same bang against wood, same sound of the coins and other miscellaneous items rattling from the force. F that, am I right? And my third clarification, I want to add some details to the thing I saw in my head that night. When I first wrote this email, it was immediately after the whole ordeal, and I don't think I even wanted to write out what I saw. I say that I couldn't get a good idea of what it looked like, but I was wrong. The image has stuck in my brain since, and it was a masculine figure, but very thin and lanky with incredibly long, stretching limbs. Its face was featureless with gaping black holes for eyes and mouth. Its skin was a sickly gray-purple color and extremely loose and hung on its limbs in such a grotesque way. Luckily, nothing has happened to us since this, but it still sits with me. I every so often get a quick feeling of being watched, but I say out loud, nope, not today, and the feeling goes away. Thanks again for letting me ramble, Hannah. Yeah, it's, that...
I can see Chris just thinking about what it could be.
I'm like going through the Rolodex. Well, because it's the gray-purple sagging skin that... which sounds weird, sounds alien, almost.
Ooh.
So
it's interesting, Maddie.
Yes, a shambler.
Yeah.
An attempt at looking human, which puts it also in a sort of the plat eye and the and most shapeshifters of folklore don't get being human quite right. And one of the main things that they get wrong is skin tone, skin color, number of eyes, orifices, things of that nature. One thing that stands out to me is that, and we covered this a little when we spoke with Two Girls, One Ghost, which is how listeners who listen regularly to this content get more experiences. And a lot of that has to come with the fact that you're kind of opening your mind every time you listen to these stories. You're kind of prepping yourself to be capable of seeing things that you normally wouldn't, being receptive in a lot of ways. And I think that, the answer to your question, how do you protect yourself? You kind of answered it. You have to set boundaries, and those boundaries have to be set internally.
Chris is like, you need to stop listening.
Well, and that's kind of like one of those things and that's why we tell ghost stories at all, is to increase our ability to perceive these threats. The question is, what do you do once you can perceive them? Yeah. How do you shut them out? It's like, well, the good news is you are now aware that they're present. And that's a little better than not knowing they're there. Having them just kind of lingering about and doing whatever they want without your permission or knowledge. That's kind of creepy. I mean, it's very likely that this spirit has been around and standing over you many nights and you never perceived it. So you have opened a door to which you can now perceive it. And then the action is your will is, in fact, a powerful deterrent. You have to employ your will. You have to employ and that's what cleansing really is. And that's what all rituals that, ward off spirits. It is an application of your will. So if it is something as simple as putting crystals out or using sage or anything like that, those things are only useful if it is an act that enforces the will. But if you're just like, no, that works too.
It does.
It absolutely does. And I cannot tell you how many stories like kind of end with the person turning and being like, enough, you can't do this. Yeah. And the spirit being like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was upsetting you.
Sorry.
I'll stop sticking my finger up your nose. That is a good way to engage these spirits. And of course, it also tells you what level of spirit you're after, because greater and more powerful spirits require greater and more powerful wills, more powerful rituals, more powerful, sometimes you have to call in an expert because they are operating with more intent and more ability than we can give them credit for. So the first step is you've opened yourself up to the perception of these beings, and therefore you are now at least aware of them. The next step is to continually reinforce your will. And you can do that with daily affirmations of you're not invited, you're not allowed, you're not, because those restrictions are important for these spirits. Every folklore on the planet involves consent. Inviting the vampire in, taking the gift from the fae, whatever it is, consent plays large in how these spirits interact with us. And early on, the consent is you listen to scary stories, so you're consenting to be haunted. That is true. There is a bit of that happening. There is an invitation mat out when you open your mind to this, but you can be clear with them that they have no rights to bother you. But the more powerful an entity is, the more they can violate those rights, and then the struggle begins. But for right now, it sounds like you've got kind of a low energy entity that is around and will listen to you and will take whatever it can from you, but it has to go. It has to adhere to the rules of your engagement.
So you're not thinking alien.
I'm not thinking alien. No.
Okay.
I'm going off of Alien for a very specific, just because of the nature of how it presented.
The sloughing skin, right.
But there's some other things that it could be. You're in Arizona, which is big skinwalker territory, which also it's the fact, partially with the alien side of things too, that's not an uncommon encounter where people say that they are given images from certain beings and whatnot. Broadcasting thought. Exactly. Yeah. But if, you're, setting a firm boundary is working, doesn't really matter what it is. That's what works, and your intention of protecting your child is a very strong energy source, if you will.
Absolutely.
So I think that's partially why it bowed out so easily too, because you're like, you are absolutely not coming anywhere near my baby,
I think it's funny to think about aliens trying to get into your house, because I don't think they just go through the walls like the movies. I don't think they beam in or whatever. I think they're actually trying to crack a window and they stick their leg over.
It's highly dependent on what kind of alien you're talking about, because a lot of people live in a world where the aliens are interdimensional beings. They don't require walls or doors or anything like that.
I'm talking about green alien.
Included. Okay. I mean, there are people who believe that grays do not originate in outer space, but through another dimension. Yeah. And their access to us is through opening portals that they can just walk through in any vein. Of course, if they walk through a portal on the outside of your house, then they can't just go through the wall. They're now outside your house, but they can open a portal inside your house and give you a hard time.
That is true.
And that's highly contingent on what kind of lore you believe in and what kind of alien you think you're encountering, and whether or not you believe in extra-dimensional versus extraterrestrial. All of those questions come up, and we could deep dive forever the variations and varieties of aliens and how they get around.
And I also think it's interesting that why you might have also, besides, your interest in paranormal and whatnot, of why you might have been chosen or sought out. You said that you bought 40 acres of land and you live in a renovated school bus. I mean, I don't know what kind of cleansing you did with the renovation process, or spiritual cleansing is what I mean. But those buses hold so much energy because they were transporting children for so long.
Generations.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times entities gravitate to childlike energy because of the fact that it's so pure and it's very potent and whatnot. And so there's a number of different reasons. And if you're on 40 acres of land and it's just you're of course going to be number one choice, number one pick. So nonetheless, though, I think what you did was great. So also Fab said breaking and entering aliens. So
Yes,
that's
right.
nobody wants to be any alien. So
I just
Well,
think
that's, again, one of those interesting things.
The vision's funny of it.
That so often in so many forms of lore is the thing that will stop a supernatural intruder is you not giving them permission.
Exactly.
You saying, "Nah, stay outside. Don't come in."
Megan.
Megan.
Anywho,
Forgot your jacket.
that's really why the alien was there. It's like you forgot your jacket or the entity, whatever it was. It's
Like in the spaceship when
Yeah.
they beam your ass
you
up.
forgot your jacket. Anywho, thank you, Hannah, for writing though.
Yeah.
And then our next one comes from Keris. Hey y'all, it's Keris again. So lots of multi writers.
Yeah, we always find that
Theme.
the commonalities in these ghost mails in one episode.
So Keris said, thank you for sharing my experience on your last podcast. Now that you've mentioned remote viewing, I think that's what has been happening, and I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. Don't tell the CIA. Okay, thanks. And then Keris's email is broken up into a couple stories. So the first one is Bestie's new apartment. When I was in college, I made a close friend. We worked together on campus during the summer months and were roommates a few times. One semester, she moved into an off-campus apartment. She was really excited and kept me up to date on the move and decorations and furniture she had bought and the unpacking process. She expressed her excitement for me to come over when she was fully moved in and unpacked. Y'all, tell me why I saw her apartment before she had gotten the chance to invite me over. And it was on accident, though. So it's the nighttime, I'm in bed, and I'm drifting off. Between the years of 2009 through 2014, my lucid dreaming experiences exploded. I always felt like I was traveling. I would oftentimes find myself dreaming before I even fully went to sleep. So I meditated a lot to help calm my anxiety and help me fall asleep. My meditation would usually just be me envisioning my feet as I walked out of my bedroom, out the front door, down the sidewalk, down the street, until I drifted into a lucid dream state. I usually would start to float up past the trees and into the sky before leaving the planet completely. It takes me more energy to stay on the planet in this state. I don't know why. This night, I watched myself walk to an apartment complex, then to an apartment door, and then inside the front door. I was levitating inside a dark living room. I clearly saw the painting easel she had excitingly told me about, her couch, her kitchen to the left. I hovered there and got a sense that she was in the apartment, actually in the bedroom, asleep. I knew that was a boundary I should not cross once I realized where I was. I thought, OMG, is this Jay's apartment? That's the easel she had been talking about. I wasn't going to be a creep and enter her room, so I just floated back to my own bed or back to another area of astral space. Y'all, I don't know where the hell I was, but I left her apartment, went into the night sky, and was gone. I told her about it, and it freaked her out so bad she didn't want to talk about it. She'd been flushed whenever I brought it up. I was even a little freaked when she had finally finished unpacking and invited me over. Physically standing in a space I had accidentally seen a few nights prior was freaky. Everything looked the exact same. And then the second story is Skeleton Man. This was a creature I saw out my window a lot of times. I would wake up and go into the waking trance state I mentioned in my last Ghostmail, and would just watch creatures kind of put on a show outside the window. Usually it was broad daylight too, because I'd be waking up from an afternoon nap. I was about 4 years old and woke up from a nap, sat up, and got the frozen feeling where I was looking out the window. I saw this large, fuzzy creature walk by. It was changing colors. It didn't scare me. And then, on a bicycle, was a skeleton wearing a top hat. Are you sure you didn't go to Halloween Town? Because that's what it feels like. That's exactly what I would imagine.
Yeah,
you
right.
know. But anyways, nonetheless, he was riding the bike by the window, turned to me, honked the horn on his bicycle, tipped his hat, and just continued to ride by. Then he came back, did a little dance, and he was doing the robot and pop locking like he was going down the Soul Train dance line, something I watched all the time with my parents.
That's fantastic.
It is. First, I just stared, but then I giggled when I realized the skeleton man meant no harm and was actually rather polite. He never came back, never bothered me. I guess he just realized I saw him and wanted to be playful and make me laugh. I was very scared as a kid and had night terrors, so perhaps he was just stopping by to cheer me up. And that is Keris's story. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. You know, you definitely have, you're a very gifted astral projector.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things is it is very difficult to stay in this plane.
Yes, it is.
As an astral entity. So that completely supports the story is you're not supposed to be walking on the firmament on the ground in that form. That would make you a dangerous person, and we will keep the CIA out of it.
Yes.
Because conceptually, if you can interact with this plane of existence in the astral realm, that puts you in a totally different category. But remote viewing, that sounds exactly like what you've somehow mastered, even inadvertently, is being able to see things that are removed from you or obscured from you through just simple thought projection.
Which I think is fairly common with people who are able to remote view.
Yeah, I think astral projection and remote viewing are very akin.
Yeah, which I think there are some people who astral project but never get to the remote viewing side, but it feels like...
And the other way around.
Right.
Because you can train to remote view.
Right.
You can take a very technical path to remote viewing, which is kind of almost like a regimen that you have to follow. Some people use specific frequencies, even radio frequencies, like just blank radio channels. And it might even be a little bit of how spirit boxes work, as far as like remote viewing and being open to channels, pathways, frequencies that are being broadcast that are not necessarily bound to the radio.
Exactly. And a part of me wonders why, if possibly your friend might have seen you. And that's why
she was so freaked out. I was wondering if that wasn't going to come up.
Yeah.
You know,
because...
Or just worse, that she had experiences of being watched by something, some other, and is aware of that sensation of there being another. Because it's also interesting that you have seen entities watching or performing outside the window, things like that. That theme is kind of recurrent and scary to think that there's just entities hanging out,
right? Just vibing,
just watching, just vibing, and they're not exactly human by any stretch of the imagination.
That is really creepy. But I mean, yeah, it sounds like, you just kind of have wild astral projections, which is cool.
Very cool.
And
if you can control them, all the better.
Yes. And as long as you stay safe, because that's always the biggest, worry when people do astral projection is where, you can sometimes become a target for other things that...
When you're not in your body's a vessel. The vessel can be filled by other things. So be mindful that when you're out of your body's just an open buffet for spirits, and they want in. So take precautions.
Yeah. And that's where people who regularly astral project start to dive into the study of it so that they can find ways to,
protect themselves.
Yeah.
And when you stay in the realm of lucid dreaming versus astral projection, because there is like just a breath's difference. Because lucid dreaming, you have a lot more control. In astral projection, you are now having to adhere to certain rules and certain faculties that you have to abide by in order to manipulate. But in lucid dreaming, your imagination has a lot to do with how you can motivate and move and get around. So, if you can remain closer into the lucid dreaming part, you can start interpreting information rather than experiencing information. And you should not remote view for long. The longer you are in that state, in the astral projection state, the more susceptible you are to the unwanted attention of other entities.
That is true. And we'll leave that with Frenchie's comment, which was so respectful, so demure of turning back. Yes, I'm sure your friend was appreciative that you didn't go.
Yes, yeah, very nice. It's like, well, I could just watch her sleep.
Yeah.
She's just right in there.
But
I could totally do it.
But I'm
just
nice.
going to stay here with the easel. Nice easel.
But
I don't know why you turned into like a trucker.
Yeah, it's a nice easel.
It's a nice easel.
We have room for one more.
There's room for one more.
All right, so this one is going to be from Rowan. So Rowan said, "Hi guys, my name is Rowan and I'm from just outside Vancouver, Canada. Before I get into my story, I just wanted to say that I love you guys' podcast so much. I'm currently sitting at my desk with my earbuds and listening to your most recent episode when mimics prey on the vulnerable." Oh. It's classic. We love talking about that. And I'm cuddled up in my heated blanket getting some work done. My story today is a bit short, but has really stuck with me and my family. Around when I was 10 or 11, my childhood cat had to be put down. She was 16, and in her last few days, she was so unwell that she was glued to the couch, and we knew it was time. She was old and chunky, as every good cat should be, despite her name being Minnie, and had arthritis and couldn't run around like she used to anymore. Before I get further into my story, I should make sure it is known the layout of my house. It was a 3-bedroom house with all 3 bedrooms at the end of the same hallway in a triangle formation. It was just after Christmas and everyone was missing her. I was laying in bed one night, unable to sleep at around 10 to 11 p.m., when all of a sudden I hear what seems to be my childhood cat running up and down the hallway. It startled me at first, but I quickly realized what that familiar sound was. Later on in the week, I got up the courage to tell my mom what I had heard, and she had explained that my sister, who was 16 or 17 at the time, had also heard it and told my mom about it. And it turns out both her and my sister had also heard it at the same night and at the same time as me, and came to the exact same conclusion of it being Minnie getting the zoomies in her favorite place. Aww. We had no other explanation for that sound but to be her. Not really a spooky story, but more wholesome and cute. If you could, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I have many more stories from my childhood and would love to share in my next couple entries, but for now, I thought I'd start with this one. Take care. I can't wait to hear you guys talk about your thoughts on this one. Lots of love, Rowan.
Oh,
yeah, I think
that's very sweet.
I think it definitely was Minnie.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's no reason to think that it's not. And even more to the point, the vast majority of ghost stories are sweet. People don't really feel the need to tell them because the way that they're consequential is so personal and doesn't require investigation.
Right.
You know, you see your grandmother, you know, shortly after she passes and she, you know, reassures you or you suddenly feel lightened by the presence. It doesn't make for a story that they're thinking, oh, well, we got to get to the bottom of that. People don't necessarily have to get to the bottom of a loved one who shows up and gives you comfort. And I think that I know that at least a year, if not more, my dog, when my dog Ranger passed, I would see out of the corner of my eyes, and it's enough to say that just might be how your psychology works. You're just so used to seeing or hearing clippity-clappities of the claws on the floor, but it was never a sensation of did I hear it? No, I absolutely knew what I heard and saw, and I also never questioned it. There was never a time when I was like, "What on earth could that be?" It was obviously Ranger, and I do think that that's just the way that the things we love, they echo when they're gone and give us kind of comfort, especially in those moments when we're missing them most. So, I think that it's not even a question of trying to divine what it might be. It's just, your cat was still zooming around the house. Got the zoomies.
Which is cute.
And also showing that it was okay.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Showing that it's not suffering. It's still playful. It's still playing. That's the thing about Ranger was Ranger was very ill at the end and was very sluggish. But when we had these experiences, me and my wife, whenever we had an experience, he was rushing by. He was running past us. And it's like, I think it's to show us that the suffering is gone.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means. It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop early holiday deals now.
Yeah, I had a not necessarily same type of haunting when I was a kid. We had a family dog named Scruffy who passed very, very early on by just like a freak accident sort of situation. And Scruffy was he was a doodle. So, he had a lot of energy. He loved to run around the neighborhood. We only had a few neighbors because of where we lived. So he would run through the woods and stuff. And he would show up at people's houses. And yeah, he was great. But the only way you could get him to know that it was time to come home is you would take squeaky tennis balls or squeaky balls and stuff. And he would hear it because he had fantastic hearing, I guess. And he'd hear it and immediately you just see this like blonde flash run through the yard coming at you. And when he passed away, there was underneath in my parents' dining room, they had like a china cabinet that I guess he had lost a bunch of those like squeaky balls underneath at some point. And after he had passed, suddenly you'd see these squeaky balls come rolling out from underneath the cabinet. He's like, finally, I can reach these bad boys. I've always wondered where they went.
I'm incorporeal, so I can do this.
Exactly. So, it's like, I think our pets show us ways once they pass of, things that are identifiable to us, of knowing like, oh, that has to be, so-and-so or whatever. And it's just kind of their way of still being involved in the family. That's why we get very little or very few ghost mails of that order. It's not because the stories aren't prevalent and happening. It's because they were immediately accepted and never questioned. Very few people question those stories. And I feel that ghost mails are generally questions. Generally people saying, I'm going to share this with you because I can't explain it, or I'm going to share this with you because it had a profound effect on me and I need some kind of insight on it. The beauty of like having a pet or a loved one visit you after death is oftentimes it is closing a door on an event in your life, or it's kind of putting a bow on your experience, and it doesn't require outside people saying anything necessarily about it. Not that there's anything wrong with reaching out, and if you have these stories, please share them, absolutely. But I do know that people always think that ghost stories need to be a little, oogity boogity. So but
they're
not always.
Well, they're reticent with telling like heartwarming stories. They tend to want to tell you the, spookity. So yeah. So we have room for one last ghost story, and thank you, Rowan, for sending your ghost kitty story. This one comes from Sarah from Metro ATL. So excellent. Right by us. So Sarah said, hello, I'm a new listener and haven't stopped since I found your podcast. Now my sister and mom are listening too, which is great. So hello to the whole family. I attached a PDF with my ghost mail. Hope you like it. So, hello. I recently discovered your podcast and am totally obsessed. I decided to send in my ghost mail to hear your thoughts on my own story. But also because when I try to tell most people about these things, they think I'm crazy, which is a very common sentiment for most people who have any experience in the paranormal. But
which may be a little valid, but I digress. 2 parts to this. Sorry if this is too long. Feel free to cut some out if needed. Part 1, visions. Or actually, because there's a question mark, visions? For as long as I can remember, I've had what I can only describe as visions, and perhaps that's the influence of watching That's So Raven, but it is oddly similar. Unfortunately, it's not a gasp of air, wide-eyed shocker moment of a vision, but rather it feels like a memory that I don't quite remember. Oftentimes I shrug it off. Suffering from chronic migraines, my memory isn't the greatest, so forgetting something isn't totally foreign to me. However, it could be days, weeks, or even years later, and I will live out the exact memory I had. For a long time, I chalked it up to deja vu, but this is different. It's not just a familiarity. It's the environment, smells, sounds, people, and exact conversations. One recent example is that a year or 2 ago, I had this thought, a memory that it was dark outside with a faint flashing red glow. Very loud, and my best friend was standing with me in a black tank top, but she was very visibly upset. She turned to me and said, "I don't think I can do this anymore." This stuck out to me because I could not remember when this had occurred. I've known her for most of my life and have never seen her that hurt, nor did I know what had hurt her. And the red lights? Was it the police? I had no idea. Flash forward a year, we took a girls' trip to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. At this time, she was engaged, but was going through a difficult time with her fiancé. They had been arguing over the phone all day. Later that night, we get in line for one of the haunted houses. It's dark, but there's a concert going on at the venue across the way. Welcome to the Black Parade is playing loudly, but is muffled through the trees. Our other friend had gone to the souvenir shop and gotten us matching headbands with flashing light-up red devil horns. I put them on and looked at my friend. The moment I saw her face, it all hit me. I knew exactly what she was going to say. At almost the exact moment she said that sentence, I said, "It's going to be okay." I know it seems silly, but this was only one instance. Sometimes the occurrence is not even worth noting, but it happened more frequently as I've gotten older, and oftentimes the visions are longer and more detailed. I spoke to my sister about it, feeling a bit nervous for her response. However, she told me that she too has had this experience. It used to freak her out until she talked to our mom. Our mom had told her that she has had the same vision since she was a kid as well, and that her mother and grandmother also both had them. Perhaps it's something in our maternal genes. I'm not sure. I'm also not sure if it would be considered as a gift, but I do know that it is something I can't quite explain. So we will discuss that in 1 second, and then we're going to read into part 2, which is a haunting in Savannah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So I will preface this story by noting that I love Savannah. It's easily one of my favorite places on earth. My family is not shy of the paranormal, as we've all had our experiences. Being that we love all things spooky, of course, I planned my sister's Bachelorette trip to Savannah. I know what you're thinking, typical, and yes, while we did the stereotypical tipsy trolley bar crawl, we're also a group of true crime fanatics and history nerds. So Savannah's a perfect place.
Yeah,
then.
there you go.
Yeah. For the trip, we had about 6 girls total, so it was easier to book an Airbnb. I found this amazing house off of Habersham Street with the historic marker and all. I booked it and told the hosts that about our spooky endeavors and how excited we were to stay in a historical Savannah home. We arrived before my sister to set up decorations and gifts. This is silly, but I promise it comes back later. One of our friends had found a Bachelorette banner that said same, forever. Anyways, and which I know I've been to plenty of Bachelorette encounters. So yes, and hung it directly in the hallway where you enter. Classy, I know, but it's a Bachelorette trip. We were there for 4 days, and being an old house, there were obviously creaks and groans. Some of the girls were a bit unsettled by this, but again, I assured them it's just an old house as there were limited beds. I took one for the team and slept on the living room couch. I normally sleep like a rock, dead to the world, but I could not sleep here. As soon as the lights went out, it felt like there was a presence all around me. I turned the TV on for a dim light and background noise, but something about the openness of the room was so uncomfortable. I avoided looking at any of the mini doorways because my gut was telling me there'd be a shadow. I didn't mention it. Because while my sister and I may be weirdos, the rest of the group was not. One night, we all decided to go out, likely to Savannah Smiles, and we returned to a scene that sent chills down my spine. At this point, it's late, dark, and thunderstorm had just begun. Perfect, right? Wrong. Inside our house, we noticed crosses drawn on the walls, everywhere. Down the hallway, above beds, inside closets and cabinets, above every doorway, the fireplace, windows, etc. They were drawn in what seemed to be some kind of oil. Mind you, this is an Airbnb. There's nothing more than salt, pepper, and K-cups in the kitchen. Had we offended the previous residents? Was the word dick too much just for reference for religious spirits, or was it an evil presence? As not to scare anyone, I tried to explain this as maybe something a previous owner had done, and maybe the humidity from the rain had brought it out. To be honest, I don't even know if that's possible, nor did I believe that, but it felt like the right thing to say at the time. Unfortunately for me, as we're standing there, goosebumps and all, more crosses kept appearing with excess oil dripping down the walls. At this point, about half the bridesmaids were in their cars looking for a hotel. Those of us that remained were awestruck, just shock. No explanation. In the morning, yes, we slept with the lights on. We discussed the possibilities. Then it clicked. The owners were thrilled to hear that we were interested in the paranormal. It must have been a prank. We checked out that day and headed home. I was sent a survey about our stay. Being the people pleaser that I am, I left 5 stars and said it was amazing. I especially loved their trick with crosses on the walls, as it definitely gave us a scare we'll never forget. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number, something along the lines of, "Hi, Sarah, this is your Airbnb host. We're so glad you enjoyed your stay. Can you please explain what you meant by crosses on the walls?" My stomach got the twisty feeling. I explained everything and sent pictures. The owners were terrified. They made it very clear that we would never pull that kind of prank, nor had they ever had that happen. One of the owners showed me the inside of the house after we had left, and not a single cross on the wall. They were all gone. They had cameras on the outside of the outside and assured me that no one had been in or out of the house other than ourselves. After giving them all the details I could, they told me they'd continue to investigate, and that was the last I'd heard of it. However, I recently looked for the house again on Airbnb and saw it was no longer listed.
What?
Anyways, that's my story. I hope y'all enjoyed it, as most people think I'm making this up or crazy, forgetting I had 5 other witnesses. My boyfriend and I were in Savannah last weekend for my birthday, and I told him the story while having dinner at the Pirate's house. He doesn't believe in ghosts or much of anything paranormal. He jokingly mocked that the ghosts were going to eat all my shrimp next. Then laughing proceeded to say, "Oh, ghosts of Savannah, I welcome you into my body to take control," which is not wise.
Not a great choice.
I immediately bowed my head and prayed to the Lord. He laughed, but in my world, hell no. I do not condone possession. Sorry again. This was so long. Not at all. I appreciate your details, but I love your podcast and feel I've learned so much from you, even as a new listener. Keep doing your thing. Much love, Sarah.
Okay, so what's that?
So, Sarah, I would like to know where it is.
Yeah, we gotta know.
Because I was actually at an exorcism on Jones Street, which the priest drew crosses with olive oil on all the walls. That's how he proceeded through the apartment. And
wild.
in the kitchen, the olive oil turned black on the wall.
What?
Yeah.
So send that address.
So let us know where it is. But
I'll
know
email her.
that there is a correlation in using oil to putting crosses on the wall. It is a part of, and I want to say it might have been the Episcopal exorcism. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But I was witness to an exorcism that used crosses on the walls, and the crosses on the walls helped locate, because in the kitchen behind the wall where the cross turned black, it was a fake wall. It was a hollow wall, and there was a room, like a little closet inside that room, and it was just like there was like a sink in there, and it was nothing like, ooh, but it was strange. It definitely brought about that. But oil crosses and exorcisms, they're linked. So it might have been a house that had received an exorcism at some point, and your presence, for whatever configuration, might have triggered some kind of recall, some sort of residual event.
Yeah, that's the oil crosses. I immediately assumed, I was like, oh, that's something
Absolutely.
mocking a traditional way to cleanse, which is concerning and interesting too. That the owners seem to genuinely believe that nothing like that had ever happened before.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as they are aware.
Gone?
Or that there would be no traces of it.
Right.
The fact that, because if they had not done it and they showed up to clean the house and it was covered in oil crosses on the wall, they probably would have said, hey, what are you doing in our house?
Exactly.
What are you doing in our Airbnb? So that's really intriguing.
It's
and
super interesting.
I'm
gone
now
off
very
Airbnb.
interested in the location of it.
I just emailed her.
Yes.
I was
And
like, we just read it live on the podcast.
yeah, Fab said, "Big yikes." That's
Big
how
yikes.
That's how I feel. Also,
Big yikes.
Also, big yikes at your boyfriend saying, "Come into my body."
Yeah, none of that. None of that.
Don't do that. But anyways, and then also to
the vision.
Yeah, the vision.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the vision
We
because
were all just wrapped up in the oil crosses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
seeing the future is always an iffy situation. Like coming to the fact that you see something so clearly, because the future is such a intangible thing that can change at the whims of anything. So whenever you have a time slip like that, a moment of witnessing something in the future, it does kind of like make you wonder. And it puts you on the list of things that could trigger something like a residual event. Like these oil things might be because there's something about your energy that allows for supernatural forces to present themselves.
Yeah, a lot of what people would consider that to be is clairsentience. And the fact that you said all of the women in your bloodline have had this
and
ability.
That's a classic.
It's very classic. And especially for women, I find it's very common for it to get passed down through every generation. So not surprised to hear that you have that ability. And as long as it's not bothering you, nothing to worry about. And sometimes people do find that they get more details. Some people, their visions are very vague, and it can always be very tricky to decipher.
And oftentimes they're only clarified after the event that they've had the vision of.
Right.
Like they don't even have the ability to narrow it until after the event. They're like, oh, I think that's what it was, because it was vague, but there are enough indicators.
Exactly. And it's pretty obvious that you were able to exactly pinpoint that moment because of just, the vague things of it being loud and there being red lights.
Right.
And you were able to pinpoint all those details of like, oh,
And
that's what that
wearing,
was. Exactly. And I hope your friend's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But nonetheless, really great story, Sarah. And we hope that you hit us back soon.
Yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah. Because we would love to hear more stories, and we would love to know where that spooky house is, always. But anywho, thank y'all so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a ghost story you would like to send to us, you can send it to ghostmail at hauntedcitypodcast.com. But other than that, y'all, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.